Well, hello. I struggled with whether I even wanted to check in this week on my weekly reading catch-up. I'm not really feeling it, but also, at the same time, I feel like having routine and sense of normalcy through routine probably will be helpful for me. So my brain is telling me I should have this routine and go on, but my heart is not in it. So this is going to be a very lackluster, probably, weekly check-in. I also have not been reading a ton. So I have one book to catch up on, and that was actually for my in-person book club last weekend. I read it just immediately before our meetup. So for whatever reason, they had picked two books. I think there was a tie in their voting or something for October. And so we had God of the Woods, which I already discussed, and then we had Murder on the Orient Express, which I just finished. And it was very interesting, and I think it was nice to be with this particular book club because no one really cared about like diving into the mystery and figuring out all of the clues. It was not that intense. Everyone was just into talking about the story itself and the experience of the book. So I think this one was very different from previous Christies that I have read. I've only read Mousetrap, the play, and then there were none. Obviously her most popular. And the tone here was quite different in the narrative and storytelling, I think. I think it was so much stronger. Mousetrap as a play is clearly a very different reading experience, and a lot relies on the performance, I think, versus the storytelling. And then there were none. That has a really, really strong initial hook to pull the reader in, but after that it gets kind of formulaic and very almost dry for me, where you aren't getting a lot of storytelling to the narrative. This was totally the opposite. It was very narratively strong, I think. There was a lot of storytelling to it, even though we're really focused on Poirot investigating for most of the story. But there was so much narrative and storytelling to pull me in, and there isn't really a strong initial hook because you have a little while before anything happens in this one, because we've got Poirot, they're, I think, leaving from Aleppo and getting onto this train to connect with the Orient Express, obviously. And there were a lot of interesting cultural commentaries. Christie is obviously known for some racist things that were incorporated, and here I don't know if it necessarily was engaging with that, though it was very prominent and present how negative the people from Western culture were being about the locale that they're in and the people there. Someone is talking down about how they're getting kind of garbage money there because they're not getting, I think it was the British money that they wanted, and they're getting dinars and stuff. And so just that very sense of timely ignorance, I think, was interesting to read. I did really enjoy the mystery, though I don't think I could have ever solved it. It is very complicated, and once we get to the solution, so I had actually seen both of the past adaptations of this, so I knew what was going to happen, but reading along and even knowing it, getting to the solution, it's like, oh, come on, there is no way. This is too much, really. But it is very sensational and exciting in terms of a solution, I would say. So I enjoyed everything about the storytelling, and this being my first Poirot, he has a very strong Sherlockian character where we actually have such depth in him figuring out all of these little tiny details and picking those apart. I got interrupted there. I think I was saying, meanwhile, you have in Sherlock, he has Watson to bounce his ideas off, but here you just have the single entity of Poirot, and you can see the gears turning in his head, but you don't quite get that element of him bouncing ideas off and working through problems as much, but yet it's still very compelling to read. I was a little surprised, in fact, how propulsive it was to read, given that more or less you spend, I think, 15 or 20% of them initially traveling before you really they run into snow and are blocked and can't continue on while this investigation is going on. And so for 80% of the book, they're just stopped on the train and Poirot is investigating. So you would think that would not be quite as propulsive, but it's also got a very similar vibe to being trapped in a snowy manor house as well because of that. So it's very atmospheric, I think, even though they're not really going out into the snow and stuff. It's very cool. So I think the delivery of this was fantastic, and it was very easy to read and enjoyable, and I think everyone that read it in the group really did enjoy it. So I'm curious now to get more into Poirot, perhaps, because I haven't read others. So yeah, there's lots of Christie backlog for me to get to. So that's it for things I've finished this week. I've been very dependent on hybrid reading or immersive reading, both the audio and the print together, just to keep things going along. I did finish up 2 things I had in progress for other like groupings of books that I'll be wrapping up later this week, hopefully. And then as far as stuff in progress, on audio, I am listening to the 5th Frida Klein book by Nikki French, Friday on My Mind. Obviously that's a series I have been continuing for some time. I really enjoy it because it is very easy to read or easy to listen to, very compelling, and it is a thriller series. So you're following this therapist, Frida Klein, as she helps the police with things and has become caught up in a lot of long-running crimes. So that one has been a very easy, like, brain candy to read. And I think that's probably a bit where I'm going to be leaning. I think all plans are somewhat off, especially nonfiction November. Obviously, I feel like that's off the table for at least now. I may get back to it at the end of the month. I kind of prefaced my TBR with all of this as well, so I knew going into the month that this was a potential. So my TBR is in flux, certainly. I spent a ton of time scrolling Libby and not finding anything that was inspiring interest at all. So we will see where my reading takes me in the next week. So I think that's all for catching up on books. The only other thing to catch up on really for this week, it's been very, very low key, low energy, low everything. Obviously was the outcome of the election. So very, very disappointing on my end. I knew if there was a Democratic win that it would be very close. And I obviously had hopes leaning that way, but it did not come out that way. And it is just a bit heartbreaking and devastating to have so much empathy for everyone, including people I disagree with, and know that there is going to be a huge amount of suffering and pain because of this. And it really is a struggle to mentally process that. I work for a global company, and certainly like that's most of the people in meetings that I'm joining are overseas and not in the US. And the vibe was just funeral all week. So it is hard, but I think, they're feeling kind of what we felt seeing Brexit happen, more or less, where it is baffling, and I've had people be like, how is this even possible? I'm emotionally very, very low. And as I said, I think getting back to routine will be the most helpful thing that I can do. I have really been slacking off on that. And as well, having the return to work was also a return to routine this week. And things have been both good and bad with the return to work. Definitely, it was a tough time to return to work because a lot of what my job is affected by politics and world events. And so everyone was on, massive high alert, trying to stay on top of everything as chaos was occurring, really. And I think will continue occurring. And that was what happened for 4 years straight previously, and made things very difficult at my job. So we will see how things pan out. I think as far as my general sentiments and my feelings to you all, I think I have talked fairly at length in past discussions pretty recently or earlier in this year. Specifically, I would say my nonfiction vlog for BookTube Prize around June, I think, early June. I'll try and link it. But I talked about having read things that were really putting pieces together for me in seeing a lot of things that are happening and have been happening that did play out. And one of those things that came up was in reading both Doppelganger by Naomi Klein and Master, Slave, Husband, Wife. During that vlog, there was a certain element connecting Doppelganger, which is a contemporary nonfiction analyzing what's gone on politically, and Master, Slave, Husband, Wife talking about the Civil War. There were other books around this time, so I talked about this several times, but certainly the most discussion is there. But just about the reality or the fact of there being two completely separate realities being experienced right now by the left and right in America. And that having been something that was experienced around the Civil War, and just there isn't a way forward if there's no overlap in the realities that we're experiencing and perceiving. And unfortunately, we need extreme information literacy, and that is something that I massively push. That's something I think everyone on BookTube really is pushing for, is information literacy, curiosity, and interest in people who are different than us, than the world around us, that we haven't experienced. And so I can only push for that so much, but that for me is about the number one thing that I can push. Unfortunately, it seems, we have had struggles with journalism and that being attacked. The basis of reality being shared requires a shared set of facts, and I think that's only going to get further degraded over the next few years. So I don't know what this means for the upcoming future. I remain hopeful, at least in my mind, not in my heart right this moment. But I've said, over and over again that I have to feel, through the past, we've seen cycles over and over repeated, that there are moves to the right that are painful, and they lead into a period of massive progress. And I thought we were leaning into that period of massive progress, but unfortunately I think we're still in the painful move to the right for me. So that's at least where I'm at. I know a lot of people are struggling with this and emotional and reacting very emotionally. I had to struggle with not overreacting emotionally this week myself as well. It was very hard. But I think generally just taking it one day at a time and being kind to yourself and creating boundaries with people, I think, is going to be very important. And just continuing to pursue empathy and knowledge and connection is about all we can do, in my estimation. So yeah, I think that's really all that I have to check in on for you guys today. And I know others are struggling out there as well. I haven't even caught up to watching videos from anyone after Tuesday, so I haven't seen anybody's direct reactions, but I have checked my subscriptions feed to see if there were things that I wanted to watch immediately, and it has been noticeably, I subscribe to hundreds of people, it's been noticeably very, very low in terms of new videos posting. So I know other people are also off their schedules and have been, shaken up a little bit by this. So yeah, I don't know how we're gonna get through the next 4 years, but I think that it is possible, and that's all I can hope for right now. Yeah, so I think that is it for me today. And I thank you all for showing up and for caring to check in with me every week. Thanks so much for watching.